Karen from the HOA thought, cutting my ham radio wire would silence me forever in this quiet neighborhood. She marched across my lawn with garden shears, righteousness blazing behind her narrowed, furious eyes. The antenna tower stood tall beside my garage, perfectly legal under federal communications law. But Karen believed neighborhood rules outranked anything written in distant government offices. She shouted about property values, aesthetics, and imaginary complaints from invisible, concerned neighbors. I calmly explained the protections licensed operators receive under long-standing federal communications regulations. She laughed loudly and called my hobby childish, unnecessary, and disruptive to her peaceful evenings. What she did not realize was that I document everything carefully and thoroughly. The next morning, my signal dropped abruptly during an emergency WeatherNet transmission. Static replaced voices coordinating storm updates across 3 surrounding counties nearby. I stepped outside and immediately saw the severed coaxial cable hanging limp. Clean-cut, deliberate, intentional, with no storm damage anywhere in sight. My security cameras captured every second from 3 crystal-clear angles. There was Karen, trespassing boldly, clipping federally protected communications equipment. She smirked while cutting, as if trimming an annoying weed. What she trimmed instead was a federally regulated communications line. Under federal law, interference carries serious criminal consequences. I saved the footage to multiple encrypted drives immediately. Then I contacted my attorney without warning anyone. He reviewed everything and went completely silent. Silence from him meant something serious. He said calmly, "This is not small claims territory. This crosses into federal felony interference." I nodded slowly, feeling anger replaced by cold resolve. Meanwhile, Karen posted proudly in the neighborhood forum. She bragged about removing unsightly illegal antennas. Several neighbors applauded her bold leadership publicly. None of them understood the federal protection involved. 2 days later, a black SUV parked outside her house. Not a local patrol vehicle. Federal agents stepped out wearing windbreakers with bold yellow letters. Karen opened her door confidently, assuming someone complained about me again. Instead, she was handed official documentation. She laughed at first, thinking it was exaggerated intimidation. Then her smile slowly collapsed into confusion. The agents explained federal communications interference statutes carefully. They described potential fines and possible prison exposure. Her face drained of confident suburban authority instantly. I watched quietly from my porch across the street. She looked toward me, finally understanding consequences. That afternoon, an emergency HOA meeting was scheduled hastily. Karen attempted damage control before rumors spiraled further. She claimed misunderstanding and exaggerated accusations. Unfortunately for her, federal agents attended to. The room shifted from gossip to grave silence immediately. Agents projected still images from my security footage. There she was, wire cutters raised triumphantly, trespassing clearly beyond property boundaries. Cutting equipment protected under federal statute, no ambiguity remained for anyone present. The board members stared at her speechless. Authority evaporated from her posture instantly. The agents explained penalties could exceed significant fines. They mentioned potential criminal charges formally. Suddenly, property values seemed irrelevant. Karen tried blaming stress and neighborhood pressure. She suggested I provoked her intentionally. The footage destroyed that narrative instantly. My attorney then addressed the entire board calmly. He explained civil liability layered atop federal consequences. Damages would include equipment replacement and legal fees. And emotional distress during emergency disruption. The board voted unanimously to remove her presidency. She lost authority within 15 quiet minutes. But federal consequences moved independently. Weeks later, she accepted a plea agreement quietly. Community service and heavy financial penalties followed. She was barred from holding HOA office again. My antenna tower remained standing proudly. I upgraded the system even stronger. Neighbors suddenly asked curious, respectful questions. I hosted an open demonstration weekend. Children learned about emergency communications preparedness. Parents realized its importance during disasters. The same neighbors who applauded Karen apologized privately, accepted apologies without bitterness. This was never about revenge. It was about principle and protection. Federal law exists for critical reasons. especially when emergencies demand reliable communication channels. One cut wire could cost lives. That reality silenced remaining critics quickly. Karen moved away within 6 months quietly. Her house sold below asking price ironically. The HOA rewrote guidelines more carefully afterward. They consulted attorneys before threatening homeowners again. I continued volunteering during storm seasons faithfully. My call sign became familiar locally. Respect replaced ridicule gradually. Sometimes justice arrives quietly. Sometimes it arrives in black SUVs. Karen thought she was enforcing rules. She was actually violating federal statute. That wire cut her authority instead. Pride collapsed under recorded evidence. Law outweighed neighborhood politics decisively. My signal returned stronger than before. My tower stood taller symbolically, and the HOA learned limits painfully. Never mistake quiet patience for weakness protected by federal law.